Hello YouTube, I'm Connor, and today we are going to take a look back at the iMac G3. This revolutionary all-in-one desktop computer was first unveiled in 1998 by Steve Jobs. This device was designed not only to bring the internet to every household, but to make it as easy as possible. With this computer having all of its components in one shell, including the display, speakers, and motherboard, this setup process was pretty straightforward compared to the other desktop computers at the time. All you needed to do was plug in the power cable, keyboard, and mouse, and you were set. While all of this seems pretty standard today, this was huge in the early 2000s. The iMac G3 we will be looking at today is an Indigo model that came out in 2000, and it features a PowerPC G3 500MHz processor and 18GB of storage. Originally, I received this device with 128MB of RAM, but I upgraded it to 1GB of RAM. Also, I did not receive an airport card with this machine and had to add one myself, but more on that later. This iMac also has a 1024x768 15-inch CRT display, good for a PPI of 85. Driving that display is an ATI Rage Ultra with 16MB of VRAM. This machine is equipped with two USB 1.1 ports, two FireWire 400 ports, two audio in and out ports, an Ethernet port, a modem port, and a VGA port. Finally, this device originally ran Mac OS 9 but can support up to OS 10.4.11 Tiger. Alright, so now that we've covered the specs of the system, let's see how it performs. But before we get started, I'm going to connect the iMac to my LCD display since CRT monitors do not show up well on camera. Booting up, this machine takes about 47 seconds to load OS 10.4 Tiger, which is the latest operating system any G3 machine can run. Now, with the OS loaded, you can do anything you can similar to a modern day OS, right? Well, there's iTunes, iMovie, Mail, and Safari pre-installed onto the system just like a current generation iMac. But if you look at what year OS 10.4 came out, 2005, you should change your expectations of the capabilities of the system. Mail can no longer connect to the servers, Safari can no longer properly load web pages, and iMovie cannot support standard video files. Don't worry though, you can still play music from iTunes, but you cannot connect to the iTunes store to purchase or download your music. However, there is an application that can bring all this functionality back, and that is 10.4 Fox. 10.4 Fox is a Mozilla-based Firefox web browser designed for PowerPC systems that run OS 10.4 Tiger or 10.5 Leopard, and it is still being updated by the developers. This web browser supports modern website code, and it is able to display most websites properly, unlike the pre-installed Safari. But don't get too excited, as the web browser is still hindered by the system's poor performance, seen here as it takes many seconds to complete Apple's homepage. Also, the browser spammed me with a message saying that there was an unsupported font. However, you can log into Gmail and look at your emails, but it takes a pretty long time to load and it's pretty laggy. Moving on to the only synthetic benchmark I could find that would run on this machine, here is the original Geekbench. It scores a 243. In comparison to the iPhone 5C, which scored a 1,265 in Geekbench 3, this just shows how much more advanced computers have gotten over the years. And comparing it to the latest iPhone 10, that device scores over 10,000, which is 41 times higher than the iMac G3. However, I could not find a 3D benchmark or game that I could test on my iMac G3, so if any of you know of any application that would work, let me know in the comments down below. So, what can you use this machine for? Well, practically nothing. I guess you could use it as a speaker by importing songs to iTunes because the speakers actually sound pretty good. Here's a sample of the quality, and trust me when I say it sounds better in person. However, you cannot download music through the iTunes Store. The last thing I want to cover in this video is the fact that you can actually upgrade this machine. Yes, you heard me right. You can upgrade this Apple product. While in recent years Apple has made it nearly impossible to open up their products, they actually wanted you to upgrade this machine back in 1998. At the most basic level, you can turn the knob of the bottom of the machine to reveal the RAM slots and an airport card. This machine originally came with 128 megabytes of RAM and no airport card, but I upgraded this machine to the max with 1 gigabyte of RAM and an airport card so that it could connect to the internet. In 2018, 18 years after this specific model was created and 20 years after the original iMac G3 was announced, I would say these machines are useless. The only real reason you would want to have one of these machines is if you collect old computers and technology like I do. While the iMac G3 was the next big thing when it was released in 1998, both the iPod and most recently the iPhone have taken that title. However, Apple still pays a lot of attention to its iMac lineup since they just released a brand new model called the iMac Pro. That device truly lives up to the iMac name as it provides the highest end specs while making it extremely easy for the user to use. It's also nice to see that they haven't killed off the iMac like they have with the iPod. So, what do you think? Is there a practical use for iMac G3s in 2018? Do you currently own one of these machines? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode of Old Hardware. Thanks for watching.